Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving right into a huge issue. What actually happens when official government statements clash directly with the reality on the ground? You know, we live in a time where access to information is faster than ever. But getting to the absolute truth, well, that can feel literally impossible. So let's unpack that tension.
We're going to look at three distinct national news stories today. In each one, the official narrative provided by authorities is being fiercely debated by the actual evidence on the ground. We'll see exactly how discrepancies between what we're told and what is documented create massive ripples across politics, law enforcement, and international relations. Here's what we're covering today. First, the McConnell medical mystery. Second, ICE's disputed Texas shooting. Third, Mexico demands legal accountability. Fourth, gutting election oversight. And finally, battling the misinformation mill. All right, jumping right in to part one, the McConnell medical mystery. So, this story kicks off with a growing, bipartisan concern over the health of 84-year-old Kentucky Senator Mitch McConnell. The former Senate Republican leader hasn't been seen in weeks, missing 21 consecutive votes on the Senate floor. Our timeline really begins on the morning of June 14th. According to first-hand accounts, right around 8:30 a.m., neighbors noticed a huge commotion. Emergency vehicles, including 2 ambulances and a fire truck, had entirely blocked the senator's street, and Capitol Police were on the scene. About half an hour later, at 9 a.m., a person was loaded into an ambulance, and since that specific morning, there have been absolutely no public sightings of the senator. None. Now listen to this first-hand account from a neighbor. They describe seeing the person on the stretcher wrapped in some sort of orange foam blanket with exposed, unmoving feet. Another witness specifically noted there was no oxygen mask. But honestly, the most jarring detail here, a distinct lack of urgency from the first responders. Instead of rushing, witnesses reported a slow, deliberate pace. I mean, that immediately raises some very serious questions about his actual condition.
And this is where we see a massive gap in transparency. On one hand, you've got the official statement from McConnell's office claiming he was admitted for a medical emergency, is receiving excellent care, recovering well, and, get this, is even working closely on Senate matters with his staff. But on the complete opposite end of the spectrum, emergency fire and EMS dispatch audio explicitly references CPR being in progress for a cardiac arrest on an unconscious patient. Those two realities, they're incredibly difficult to reconcile.
This total vacuum of verified information has naturally led to extreme unverified rumors, including claims from some political commentators that the senator is actually brain dead. The situation has become so incredibly opaque that it prompted a formal letter from Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear. He's formally demanding clarity and transparent communication about the senator's ability to hold office, basically reminding public office holders that they owe clear communication to their constituents.
Let's move on to part two, ICE's disputed Texas shooting. Our second story takes us down to Houston, Texas. Lorenzo Salgado Araujo, an undocumented Mexican national, had lived in the United States for 35 years. 35 years. He was a father to 3 U.S. citizen children, and he was simply on his way to work with his brother and 2 other men when he was shot and killed by ICE agents during a traffic stop. Once again, we're seeing a massive collision of narratives. The Department of Homeland Security's official statement claims that Salgado Araujo refused to comply with verbal orders and actually weaponized his vehicle to try and run over an ICE officer, which prompted them to fire in self-defense. But surviving witnesses and local surveillance footage, they tell a radically different story. The video shows unmarked black SUVs moving to aggressively box his van in, which prompted him to try a U-turn. And crucially, separate footage shows absolutely no damage to the ICE vehicles. None whatsoever. That severely undermines the claim that he tried to ram them.
What makes this case even more tragic, and frankly just alarming, is that ICE agents allegedly knew before they even initiated the stop that they weren't looking for Salgado Araujo at all. According to reports, the agents were specifically seeking 2 Guatemalan individuals. But after running the plates on the white van and seeing it belonged to an undocumented individual, they targeted him instead. They literally turned a case of mistaken identity into a fatal encounter.
Which brings us to part 3. Mexico demands legal accountability.
The discrepancies in this Houston case have triggered massive international fallout, and that's compounded by reports from advocates saying ICE is pressuring the surviving witnesses to self-deport, effectively waiving their right to testify. The Mexican government is no longer just sitting by. According to their records, 14 Mexican nationals have now died in ICE custody, with an additional 3 killed in active operations, including the recent death of Salgado Araujo. For Mexico, this has become a very clear pattern of lethal force mixed with zero transparency.
In a major escalation, Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum delivered a really powerful message, announcing plans to completely bypass standard diplomatic back channels. Instead, her government is preparing to file criminal complaints directly in the United States for all Mexican citizens killed by ICE. They are going straight to U.S. prosecutors to demand the accountability and transparency that they feel the Department of Homeland Security is actively withholding.
Shifting gears, let's look at Part 4, Gutting Election Oversight.
To really understand this quiet but monumental shift regarding the U.S. Election Assistance Commission, we have to look at the legal groundwork. Step 1. The recent Supreme Court ruling in Trump versus Slaughter overturned a 91-year-old precedent that historically protected independent agency staff. Step 2. This decision effectively granted the executive branch the power to fire independent agency staff at will. And Step 3. The White House moved swiftly, applying this new power directly to the Election Assistance Commission.
The result was immediate and sweeping. The administration terminated the 2 remaining Democratic appointees via a sudden email from the Presidential Personnel Office, and they forced out the sole Republican commissioner by asking for her resignation. A White House official justified this mass firing by stating they have the right to remove individuals who aren't, quote, totally aligned with their vision for securing elections. So the absolutely crucial point here is this. Replacing these commissioners isn't just a simple matter of hiring new staff. It requires a slow, rigorous Senate confirmation process. That means the vital independent agency responsible for election consultation and administration has been hollowed out just a few short months before a highly contentious midterm election. The actual transparency and oversight machinery itself has abruptly been left without leadership.
Finally, let's tie it all together in Part 5. Battling the misinformation mill. When we combine all these distinct events, it becomes so clear how a lack of official transparency actively fuels our modern misinformation ecosystem. When official narratives are vague or directly contradicted by hard evidence, well, nature abhors a vacuum, right? Rumors just rush right in to fill the void. Fact-checkers at Snopes have been working overtime tracking this stuff. Because McConnell's office won't provide details, rumors swirl that he's brain dead, despite sources saying he's simply in rehab. Furthermore, bad actors are using technology to fill that visual void, circulating completely AI-generated images of the senator in a hospital bed just to farm engagement online.
It's a highly predictable cycle. Whether officials are dodging direct questions about a cardiac arrest on a dispatch scanner, or ICE is allegedly trying to deport the only surviving witnesses to a fatal shooting, or an election oversight board is abruptly gutted right before voting begins, these information blackouts create the absolute perfect breeding ground for fake news. When the public senses they aren't getting the whole story, trust just evaporates.
Which leaves us with this final vital thought. In an era powered by AI and deeply entrenched partisan divides, if our institutions abandon transparency, how can we as citizens possibly establish what is true? The responsibility ultimately falls on us to look past the official statements, demand the evidence, and protect the mechanisms of accountability. Thank you for joining me for this explainer, and keep asking the hard questions.